It's time now for my international panel. Joining me, former Senator Cory Bernardi in Adelaide and former Labor Minister, also a former Senator, Stephen Conroy in Melbourne. I want to play a grab from Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, soon to be, I think, likely President Biden, from Wilmington, Delaware today.
And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
I tell you, Cory, it's telling for me that almost everywhere we've seen him in the last 12 months, he's required an auto cue. When he didn't, in relation to the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he had a screed of notes and he was all over the shop. I said to Greg Sheridan then, I wonder how long it will be before we have a Kamala Harris administration.
Yeah, Peter, it's a very legitimate concern because we know Kamala Harris is an extremist, the most liberal or left-wing of the senators in America. We also know that you wouldn't have seen much of Joe Biden, and if you may recall, I thought the most telling announcement was when he had to read from a piece of paper when he was calling Kamala Harris to actually remember what he was calling her about, to ask her to run with him. This is a man who is clearly past his prime, and I'm going to be very polite there, who's embroiled up to his neck in scandal, and quite frankly, the scandal hasn't ended because his campaign is directly linked to some of the most outrageous scandals in vote stacking, voter fraud and rigging an election that I've ever seen before, Peter.
It's extraordinary, Stephen, that the pollsters yet again have got it so wrong. Yes, it looks like Trump will lose, but you know, he's performed way better than anyone thought he would. This is on the back of Brexit, the election last year, the election in 2016 for the presidency. It's almost a discredited gig, isn't it, pollsters nowadays?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm still badly scarred from the last federal election, and this is the second time in a row that the pollsters have got it shockingly wrong in the US. This shy Trump vote, they just don't know how to deal with it. People don't want to tell them the truth. People don't want to even engage in a conversation about it. But I do have to I can't let Cory get away with some of those outrageous statements. I mean, Biden's just got 70 million votes. That's about 69 million, blah, 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 more than you, Cory. So the American people don't accept your analysis. They don't accept that Biden's not up to the job, and they don't accept that he's corrupt. So I'm prepared to back them in over you.
Stephen, how much of that, though, is an anti-Trump vote as opposed to a positive endorsement of Biden, do you think?
Look, I think overwhelmingly it's revulsion for Trump. But none of that then allows Cory to say the things that he just said. But no, I'm prepared to say that the Democrat turnout, which has been massive, is overwhelmingly about the revulsion that the Democrats feel in the same way that the 67 million people have turned up out of love and adoration for Trump. This has been a really fascinating election to watch.
Cory, I looked at some of the other ballots that go on in and around an election campaign. There's a whole lot of sort of special motions that get put up in various jurisdictions, but drugs were a real feature this time around. 4 states voted to legalise marijuana. The state of Oregon, which is over on the west coast, people who don't know their US geography, first state to decriminalise the personal possession of hard drugs. So we're not talking about the soft drugs we've had in the system for some time. We're talking about heroin and methamphetamine. This will allow people in Oregon to have a small possession of hard drugs, pay a fine of $100 and head along to a recovery program. What do you make of it?
Well, Peter, clearly I don't support it. I just think it is a step in the wrong direction. It's a revenue-raising basis. One is they no longer have to prosecute people. I understood they could either pay a fine or go to the rehabilitation training. I suspect most of them would pay a fine. But the marijuana stuff, look, the writing's been on the wall for that for a very long time. There is a group of people out there, mostly in the Greens Party here in Australia, who want to decriminalise all these drugs, but sort of outlaw smoking and make it harder to drink and various other things like this. But, Peter, if I can say this, I suspect the 170-year-old person who cast a vote for Joe Biden in the Michigan electoral caucus wasn't voting in any of these other areas. So just when you're talking about voter fraud, just remember a 170-year-old person cast a vote for Joe Biden. And where there's one, you can bet there's others.
Yeah, Stephen, I made the point last night. I don't think, people had clued into it. There is no such thing as an Australian electoral commission equivalent across the whole of the continental US with the rules of racing for election campaigns. And there's something like 10,000 separate sets of rules. Look, quite literally, I'm not making that up, 10,000 states, but all the various rules, county by county. This is where you would have concerns because there's not a lot of roll integrity. You can't measure the electorate vis-a-vis the votes count because there's no compulsory voting. So you're not sure, like you are in Australia, if you've got an electorate of 150 electors, 150,000 electors, and suddenly you get 200,000 votes cast in that electorate, there's some double dipping. You don't have that luxury in the United States.
But you do have to register. So there is a step. It's not just like who can turn up the most people 5 times by marching them around the corner, putting a different hat on them and sending them in to vote again. So there is a basic step that you've got to go through. I think the Democrats have long wanted a more national electoral system. I don't think they could quite get the same sort of system, our integrity. And this is a tribute to Australia and both sides of politics that have supported a free and fair system here in Australia. I'd like to think both parties could take a step forward if Biden was to win and try and get some minimum standards that would allow some of the issues that you've mentioned to be addressed.
Stephen, before we go, I've got to ask you, the resignation of Michael O'Connor from the CFMEU today as National Secretary, what's that tell us about the inside of the most militant union in the country, and does this mean now a new power play by John Setka? Look,
I've known Michael for, we were both kids. He's a great person. He has been a pillar of the trade union movement. He's been a significant figure. The union is worse off for losing him. John Setka clearly has forced him out, made his life miserable. Setka is on the march within that union. He effectively controls it through proxies in other branches, as we'd say, in other states of Australia. But O'Connor is a loss to the movement. He's a great person, and the ALP will be weaker for losing Michael O'Connor.
Well, Liberals I spoke to tonight and business leaders too have the same view. Not that they say he's in their pocket, not at all, but he's someone that they can do business with.
Yep.
Yeah. Stephen Conroy, Cory Bernardi, thank you as always.
Good to talk.
Thanks, Peter.